Hello, I want to talk about how colonialism and racism have been deeply connected throughout history. Colonialism is not just about taking land, it is a system that controls people by creating and enforcing racial differences. Scholars argue that colonial powers used racism in three main ways. The first one is they invented racial differences to separate themselves from the people they wanted to control. Secondly, they use these differences to justify taking land and ruling over indigenous peoples. The third point is they claim their own culture was superior, using laws, religion, and even science to support their actions. When Europeans expanded their colonies in the 17th and 18th centuries, they created racial categories that placed themselves at the top and indigenous peoples at the bottom. They saw indigenous peoples as backward and uncivilized, which allowed them to justify their violent takeovers. Europeans claimed they were helping indigenous peoples by bringing them civilization, but in reality, they were imposing their own beliefs and destroying indigenous cultures. One of the most harmful examples of this was the residential school system in Canada. The goal of these schools was to erase indigenous culture. A Canadian official once said that the schools aimed to kill the Indian in him and save the man. The government and churches took indigenous children from their families and placed them in schools where they were forbidden to speak their languages or follow their traditions. They were forced to adopt European customs, food, clothing, and religion. Many suffered from malnutrition, physical abuse, and sexual abuse. The last residential school in Canada, in Peniche, Saskatchewan, only closed in 1996, showing how recent this history is. Racism and the law. One of their main ways racism became a system is through the law. British colonial rule created laws that label indigenous traditions as barbaric and made them illegal. For example, in India, the British criminalized local social and religious customs like the practice of dowry. In Canada, the government banned indigenous traditions like the potlatch and sundance, which were important spiritual and cultural ceremonies. Indigenous peoples were forced to live on reserves and had to get permission from government agents to leave their communities under the pass system. The law also controlled who was considered a full citizen. In Canada, non white people faced restrictions on their rights, voting, and even their ability to move freely. These laws made sure that power remained in the hands of European settlers, while indigenous and white people were treated as second class citizens. Even today, we see the impact of colonial laws. Indigenous communities continue to face discrimination in the justice system, and the effects of residential schools still impact generations of indigenous families. Colonialism did not just take land, it created a system that treated some people as superior and others as inferior. So, what can we do? The first thing we can do is we must recognize that colonialism and racism are not just history. They are still shaping our society today. Second, we need to listen to indigenous voices and support efforts for reconciliation. Finally, we must challenge racism in our legal and political systems to create a more just and equal society. Thank you.